Hello, I am Nurbek Savitakhunov and you're watching news from Kazakhstan. 5 Zhanaozen police officers sentenced to 5 to 7 years in prison. They were found guilty of abuse of power with the use of weapons in the December riots. Internet users are actively discussing the creation of a civil government, while MPs prepare a bill on parliamentary opposition. The 14th annual international festival Bostorgai will be held in Almaty. Children from different countries will be performing in Gorky Park. On Monday, May 28th, Judge Gulmarjan Adil Sultani from the Specialized Inter-Regional Criminal Court sentenced 5 police officers to prison terms ranging from 5 to 7 years. The officers were accused of abuse of power with the use of weapons in the Zhanaozen riots. The trial lasted over a month.
Utigaliyev Kadygali is sentenced to 7 years of imprisonment in a minimum security prison in addition to property confiscation. After the release, he is banned from assuming any positions in law enforcement for the duration of 5 years. The longest sentence was passed on Kabdygali Utigaliyev, the former deputy head of the Zhanaozen DIA, following the mass riots on December 16, 2011. While pronouncing the verdict, the judge Gulmarjan Adil Sultani emphasized the role the deputy head played during the December events. The case materials contain compelling arguments which prove the policeman's involvement in the murders of unarmed civilians, the judge said. Moreover, bullets removed from the bodies of the dead is clear evidence, since ballistic tests showed they were fired from Utigaliyev's gun, meaning that it wasn't an ordinary police officer who opened fire first. During the examination of video materials, it was established that there was no threat for the lives of policemen and there was no need to use firearms. It is clearly seen that people are running away from the police, hold no weapons in their hands, and policemen are following them with their weapons pointed at running people and not in the air. The investigation action, which lasted for almost 4 months entirely, proved guilt of all policemen on trial. The extract from the verdict was quoted by the judge Adil Sultani, who said that various video materials formed the base of the guilty ruling, including the amateur videos of the tragic events. The following footage, uploaded by the user Saulia 540, shows the extreme cruelty exercised by the police, whose primary task is in the fact not to kill, much less finish off the victims. Utigaliyev's colleagues Rinat Zhaldubayev, the operative of the Munaylin DIA, Yerlan Bakatkalyuli, the deputy head of the Zhanaozen DIA, and Birjan Bagdarbayev, the head of the Mangistau regional DIA, each receive a 6-year sentence in a minimum security prison for exceeding their authority and causing multiple casualties. Victims' families believe Nurlan Yesbirgenov, the interrogation officer of the Zhanaozen DIA, got away with the lenient sentence of 5 years in prison. The victims and their loved ones are not happy with the court's verdict and they see no logic in it. How can the sentence for the murder and the sentence for taking part in the Shetpe station protest action, demanding to stop the bloodshed in Zhanaozen, be the same? Victims and their attorneys are planning to ask for the reconsideration of the case. We don't agree with the verdict. It's very mild for crimes like those. It is very short sentence for damaging people's lives. It's too short. We don't agree. All of the victims requested that Article 90 be taken into account during the trial. They were supposed to be sentenced to at least 15 years. But what can we do if the court decided otherwise? All of the victims asked for maximum penalties, which according to this article is 10 years, but they got 5 or 6 instead. What is a 5-year sentence? It means that in 2 years they could be released on parole. Moreover, the Correctional Facility Committee has come under the jurisdiction of the Interior Ministry, so don't be surprised if you come across one of the convicts on the streets in 2 years from now. Human rights activists who had been closely watching the process agreed with the attorney and announced the creation of a new organization, Zhanaozen Zhangirtu.
The investigation was unable to prove the involvement of former Zhanaozen mayor Orak Sarbapeyev in a row of financial schemes, announced the official's lawyer Marat Kazabagharov. The trial continued on Monday with the interrogation of witnesses. In all, there are 17 of them, and some were already questioned. The main focus of the interrogation was on the 2 plots of land that the ex-mayor may have distributed to his family members while in office. Witnesses did not deny their kinship relations with Sarbapev, but their revelations did not shed light on his involvement with the land. The trial was also attended by Zhanaozian administration official Nurmukhanov and Kazmunaygas exploration and production representative Idrisov. Both were questioned about Zharulkao Public Fund and 3% of the allocated amounts for the construction of 200-unit apartment block which were allegedly transferred to it. To recap, the ex-governor is charged with abuse of power, bribery, and attempt to commit a crime. Regarding the first charge count, the former governor is accused of using his official position to appropriate budget funds through the Zharulkao Public Fund. Sarbapev's attorney says his client had no relation to the fund. Negotiations on the money transfer for the construction of the apartment block were held between the fund and the contractor. In this regard, the defense requested to summon Amangildi Aytkulov, the former deputy governor of the Mangistau region. Attorney Kozubagharov says that the defendant was only executing the orders of his superior. The judge granted the defense request. Sansasbayev, the fund director, initiated to keep 3% of the contract between Ozen Kurlis and Zharulkao Fund. He coordinated this issue with the director of Kazmunaygas department, whereas Sarbapev had nothing to do with it, which was confirmed by Sansasbayev and Idrisov. Another investigation, this time in the case of First Deputy Mayor Amangildi Aytkulov, is complete and materials will be submitted to the court soon. The financial police made the announcement on Monday, also reporting on the progress of several criminal cases opened in relation to former officials in the region.
The financial police confirmed that on May 24th, 3 former executives of oil companies Kazmunaygas Exploration and Production and Munay Ecology Company have been convicted in Aktau. They were sentenced to prison terms of 7 to 8 years with confiscation of property for the embezzlement of more than $2 million. The trial wasn't given much publicity. The former Zhanaozian town administrator Zhalghaz Babakhanov will be brought to justice as well. As for Aytkulov, according to the financial police, the ex-deputy governor of the Mangistau region has been regularly receiving bribes since 2009. He has managed to give 40% of Ozen Kurul's shares to his wife, while his daughter ended up with a land plot in Zhanaozian and Keruen Sarai restaurant. According to the financial police official, Aytkulov also grossly violated the law on state procurement by helping his family members to receive contracts. The criminal investigation against Aytkulov, the deputy governor of Mangistau, is completed. Currently, the defendant and his attorneys are studying case materials. They can't really protract. Everything depends on the volume of the case.
Zhanaozian, along with 4 other cities, including the 2 capitals, will soon be introduced to digital television broadcasts. This was announced on Monday at the Government Hour in the Parliament by Minister of Transport and Communications Askar Jumagaliyev. The official did not specify why the capital of the once rioting region was given the honor of being among the first 4 cities, and deputies chose not to ask. However, one version being discussed on the sidelines is that this introduction will prevent the protesting population from viewing undesirable channels broadcast via satellite. More on the story.
I would like to say that the pilot project has been completed, and we are now talking about the introduction of digital TV in 5 cities: Almaty, Astana, Karaganda, Zhezkazgan, and Zhanaozian. The system will be fully operational in July, and that is when we will start working with the population.
A well-known human rights activist and former Senator Zauresh Batalova expressed her views in regards of the bill on parliamentary opposition, whose architect was the Akjol party leader Azat Pirwashev. Batalova sees nothing reasonable in legalizing political forces that oppose government policies. The real question is who will take on that role, and will the real opposition even be allowed to discuss the controversial document within the parliament walls? This is what she had to say.
If discussions will be held by a close circle of 3 parties in the parliament behind closed doors, then this is going to be an agreement of those 3 parties, and we all know how they got their seats. This is why these actions are not opposition. This is not a measure to increase competition. It's just a creation of certain illusion, Russian style. We don't need this. According to Batalova, the 2 parties currently represented in the lower chamber as an alternative to Nurotan are in fact affiliated and will not be capable of becoming opposition to the ruling force, even if they are given such a status legislatively. These forces should become opposition to the authorities already in place when the document is being discussed in the parliament, the politician says. For instance, one of the expected measures is financing of the parliament opposition from the state budget. According to the present legislation, this requires a favorable resolution from the government. If Akjol and KPNK manage to drop this measure from the bill, they will be praised, says Batalova. If they fail to do so, the parties will not be different from other pro-presidential forces and will be just as manipulated by the authorities. who need to respond to the systemic opposition, even beyond the parliament's walls. On May 31st, the opposition will hold an authorized rally in the capital. It is expected that protesting forces from all regions of the country will come to Astana to take part in the event.
In the meantime, avid discussions are underway in cyberspace about the creation of a shadow government. The cabinet of ministers is yet to be defined, but former leader of the Rouhaniyat Green Party, Serikjan Mambitalin, is actively pressing on with the idea.
The chances of the shadow government are assessed in Kazakhstan. The former head of the party, Rouhaniyat, is actively promoting the concept. Serikjan Mambitalin proposes to form the cabinet in the democratic way. He has not announced how this could be done, although said that this independent body will monitor the official one and, if necessary, propose its solutions to problems at hand. First of all, we need such authority for daily constructive criticism of laws and regulations of the official government. Focusing on criticizing the president, we forgot that every day the government is simply wasting our money. The ex-member of the Green Party has first presented his concept at the meeting devoted to Kurultai, a public national assembly initiated by Jarmakhan Tuyakbay, one of the leaders of the National Social Democratic Party Azad. Previously, this project had been discussed solely on the internet. In contrast to the critical attitude of Facebook users, speakers at the meeting supported the politician's proposal. Moreover, it has been included in the agenda of Kurultai in the fall.
Конечно, идея Серикжана Мамбеталина в отношении гражданского правительства сегодня похожа больше на виртуальную игрушку.
Of course, Serikjan Mambitalin's idea on the civilian government is currently more like a virtual toy. However, the idea itself is really interesting. Anyway, we will consider it as Kurultai is just one-shot event which cannot solve the issue. As I said, we need to set up a body which will enjoy legitimacy and credibility of the entire population.
Соответствующий какой-то постоянный орган, который пользовался легитимностью, доверием всего общества.
Artist Kanat Ibragimov, a former party fellow of Mambitalin in Rouhaniyat, also supports the idea of an alternative cabinet. He says it is a chance to move from protest to new methods of civil society can affect the situation in the country. The artist is convinced that the traditional Anglo-Saxon model of governance is applicable in Kazakhstan. In addition, standby managers can become a transitional authority in the post-Nazarbayev period.
Действительно, нашему обществу необходимо примирение.
In fact, our society needs reconciliation, or as Serikjan said, a kind of truce. We urgently need to stop the repressive actions and unfair trials. Everybody, including the opposition, shortly tried to persuade the government representatives to sit down at the negotiating table so that the country does not end up in the open civil confrontation.
Представителей власти сесть за стол переговоров, то есть попытаться договориться, чтобы страна не скатилась в открытое гражданское противостояние.
Besides traditional positions, there will also be a post of Minister of Rural Development in a still non-existent government. Communication with people will be interactive. Citizens of the country will be able to address their questions via blogs. The exact minister's cabinet without portfolios have not been set up just yet. However, social activists, politicians and public figures have been proposed as the candidates already. Economist Mukhtar Tayjan was also included on the list, but he didn't believe in the concept of his former party fellow at Rouhaniyat. I think this concept is very premature. Distributing positions now is like cooking a hare before actually catching it or building castles in the sky. I try to avoid participating in senseless projects, so I said at the time that I had no interest in it. Nobody knows when the alternative government will start its work. Currently, the official website is being developed. The name of an independent body's head is also unknown. The ex-leader of the Green Party himself is planning to take up the post of the Environment Minister.
Natalia Tomilova, chairman of the Minor Family Public Association, spoke about the real state of affairs in the mines of Karaganda in London. Representatives of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development are preparing to visit the region for a checkup after appropriating a large sum to ArcelorMittal Temirtau to modernize its mines. In the meantime, miners refuse to work with breaches of safety regulations, and they're being punished for it.
There is a breach of safety to the extent that the winch cable does not match its rating plate, and in response to my thoroughness, all I heard in the morning at the end of the night shift was a stream of swearing over the phone. Supposedly, not everyone will be denied bonuses and reprimanded because of me.
лишены премии, все будут это, вы виноваты.
That's how the leadership reacts to legitimate demands of the miners to provide safe working conditions. In the meantime, the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development has allocated funds to ArcelorMittal Temirtau for technical upgrade of Karaganda mines, says the chairman of Miners' Family Association, Natalia Tamilova. In London, the public organization leader presented statistics on the occupational injuries in the mining region, which is very different from those of the industrial giant. Tamilova's report has attracted substantial interest to the point of foreign bankers now planning to visit and inspect the Karaganda region along with the miners' family. Facts are being concealed by means of threats, blackmail and pressure on the miners. Accidents at work are documented as off-the-job injuries. I had a separate meeting with leaders of private banks and they have attentively listened to my complaints about working conditions of our employees. This caused strong public reaction because treating employees in such way is unacceptable.
Activists of the Zhezkazgan heating station action group claim that they are being provoked. Unidentified people added political statements to station workers' social demands, said a representative of the group, Ayjan Makhatova. She was summoned by the head of the turbine plant, Karakulov, and shown the list of demands allegedly signed by the activists. It states that people are standing up for political prisoners.
Makhatova says that the document came from the corporation's press service. The activists stated that their demands stay unchanged. The increase of salaries, creation of a public commission to resolve social issues in the region, stop pressure from the employer, as well as the permission to create an independent trade union. To resolve these issues, the activists turned for help to employees of the Aninsky mine, who managed to get their salaries increased. The appeal has been also sent to a number of international organizations. At the same time, the workers have been waiting for a response from the city's administration and Chair Eduard Ogay for over a month now. Our letter was edited. They added something we did not write at all. For instance, it reads now, the Social Movement of Kazakhstan, which was established as part of the recently created Committee for Consolidation of Human Rights Organizations and Civil Movement of Kazakhstan and Russia, in relation to cases of political prisoners and prosecuted political activists, proposes to create a commission to visit Zhezkazgan. In our letter that we sent via email, we did not have anything about political prisoners and prosecuted political activists.
Independent observers at the trial of defendant Vadim Kuramshin learned that he's being pressured. According to Kuramshin, the investigator demanded damaging information about other activists of the civil sector from him. In return, the investigator promised to soften the article under which he is being sentenced. To recap, the trial of Vadim Kuramshin, who is accused of extorting $7,000 from the Kordai prosecutor's office employee, is held in Taras. The hearing resumed on Monday after a week-long break.
Reporter of the newspaper Respublika Andrei Tsukanov is monitoring the trial of Vadim Kuramshin practically from the day one. The journalist says the information from the activist can be only obtained in small doses during the breaks between hearings. Just recently, Kuramshin revealed that he was proposed to leak compromising data about other oppositionists. When Vadim saw that mass media arrived, he immediately began voicing information that could be of interest to the public. He said that when he was arrested on January 23rd, he was offered a deal. It was the same day when Vinyavsky, Kozlov, Sapargali and a few others were detained. In exchange for the milder charge, the investigator asked him to turn Vinyavsky in, calling them members of the same gang. The milder charge would be forcible assertion of private rights, punishable by up to 5 years in prison. According to Kuramshin, there is another detail worthy of public attention. The activist believes that the Zhambul regional prosecutor who serves as the prosecutor in his trial is an interested party, because the victim, Udirbay Mukhtar, is employee of the Kordai district's prosecutor office and a direct subordinate to the regional prosecutor. They are simply raping the justice system in a perverted form. The prosecutor is sitting there and laughing at everyone. No court decision are made for this alleged crime. From my experience, I think there was no such cases in Kazakhstan's judicial practice. During the trial, the prosecutor just sits there and takes no action whatsoever. He should have shown at least some respect for the law, but he didn't even do that. They simply want to deal with me quickly. The attorney's petition for the dismissal of prosecutor Rahmetullah Akhmetov from the case was rejected by the court. Meanwhile, amateur video shot just before the start of the trial appeared on YouTube. It shows Akhmetov having a friendly chat with the victim Mukhtar Udirbayev and witness Жанабай Куанышбеков. The subject of their conversation, Akhmetov revealed himself.
Курдая приехали
Udjerbaev and the witness came from Kordai. I know both of them, and that's why they approached me to say hello and sat down since there were a number of free seats near me. It was a routine banter. Udjerbaev, as the victim, asked me for the indictment and a copy of it. I asked him why doesn't he have it, because generally victims should have a copy by the law. But he said no, so I gave it to him. There's nothing illegal about it. Udjerbaev is the assistant of the district prosecutor, so while I work in the regional prosecution office, he doesn't work there. Despite the fact that process is open, photo and video recording is prohibited. The prosecutor, Rahmetullah Akhmetov, was the one who opposed Vadim Kuramshin's attorney's request filed to permit reporters to record the trial. The state prosecutor is leading the case based on the investigation files and papers. However, it is apparent there is no effort made to look into the case objectively to secure the impartial, open and honest trial. But I don't see it happening here. The crime incriminated to the civil activist Vadim Kuramshin falls into the particularly grave category, punishable with a sentence of up to 15 years in prison.
10,000 Kazakhstani prisoners will be resettled from barracks to prison wards. The transfer is planned as part of a 3-year program to improve the penal system. This announcement was made at the cabinet meeting on Monday by Minister of Internal Affairs Kalmuhanbet Kasimov.
Separate cells for confinement should have been introduced sooner, says the Minister of Interior. However, not until recently, after a series of demands by human rights activists, this issue has been seriously addressed. It was asserted again that conditions in domestic prisons are terrible, and this explains the behavior of convicts who tend to commit suicide. The Interior Ministry requested about $154 million for the development program of the Correctional System Committee until 2015. A part of these funds, according to Kasimov, will cover the construction of hospitals and 3 new prison camps, as well as repairs of existing facilities. Currently, there are 48,000 people serve terms in jail of Kazakhstan, and only 3,000 of them are kept in separate cells. The majority of inmates live in barrack-like premises. The Interior Ministry promised to make available additional 2,800 separate cells before the end of the year, raising the number to 10,000 in the next 3 years. Currently, inmates are held in units of up to 150 people. This negatively affects the educational process, supervision, influence of inmates over each other and their relationships. It is all called the law of the underworld. Confinement to separate cells is the international standard, and it is the right way to go.
The death of a child in the Karaganda region over the weekend resulted in a spontaneous protest. On May 24th, the 2-year-old Yegor Khmil fell into a well and was washed away by wastewater. Rescuers searched for the baby boy's body for several days. The angered public of the city of metallurgists gathered at the site of the child's death and demanded to protect their children.
Those responsible should be punished, and the blame should not be placed squarely on the mother. I demand a punishment for neglect and financial aid from the government. A crowd of 1,000 people gathered near the ill-fated manhole. Children and adults had a sign of mourning in their hands, yellow ribbon symbolizing the carefree childhood. Some placed toys at the place of the child's death. The police failed to disperse the outraged citizens. People said to police they do not need the permission of the authorities to morally support the family. According to residents of Temirtau, this is not the first incident of people falling into open manholes. During the rally, it became known that the child's body was finally being found. The local administration organized a press conference for the protesters. No one could hold back the tears. After a moment of silence, the audience exploded with accusations. Women informed the officials about the locations of uncovered manholes in their city and requested to fix the situation. Temirtau prosecutors initiated a criminal case after the incident on charges of negligence resulting in grave consequences. The investigation is currently identifying persons responsible for manhole maintenance in the city. The guilty part faces up to 5 years in prison. However, the officials already blame it on those who steal the manhole covers. This cover weighs about 70 kilos. It is almost impossible simply to lift it up. Maybe someone wanted to steal it, or maybe there is some other reason. Right now, it is not for us to decide.
On May 30th, on the eve of the International Day of the Child, the children's contest Bostorgai will be launched in Almaty. It is the 14th annual creative competition.
As a professional singer, I want to see more professional performers in our country. In my time, there were a minimum of 600 and normally up to 1,000 children who came here to study. It is still very rare, though only 4 or 5 people became professional singers out of all those children who came to us to learn how to sing. The festival will be held in the downtown Gorky Park. Around 800 children from around the world will take part in the contest. They'll be competing in 4 different categories: vocal skills, choreography, folk performance and acting. The jury will consist of prominent local artists: Bibigul Toligenova, Bulat Azhukhanov, Laki Kesoglu, Kenes Dusikev and others. The event will last for 3 days and its finalists will be determined on June 1st. The competition will be closed by a grand gala concert. The only request from organizers so far is for the event to be sponsored by the national budget, on top of the money provided by the city administration and private businesses. I have heard of Bostorgai Public Foundation, so I know how hard it is to attract sponsors, to give money for the children. We're undertaking the initiatives, and this is our responsibility, because if it is run by the state, it will be treated as the government contract, and all these children will become heroes where they live. Otherwise, they will just leave after receiving their gifts and awards. It means we're walking in circles. We have participants from distant regions who commute to the event venue on horses. The result is not important. What's important is that they're getting involved in our culture.
This is all we have time for now. Thank you for watching and goodbye.